Hello everybody, and welcome to Midway Games, the series all about everything having to do with theme park video games. But to be honest, it's gonna be mostly Planet Coaster. And speaking of Planet Coaster, that is exactly what we are playing today. So we're actually gonna be taking a look today at a park that I've been working on for quite some time on and off. I've actually made an okay amount of progress, but it's not much. So this whole series is basically just going to be me finishing this park, building onto it, and eventually completing the entire thing. So this park is called Americania. It's essentially themed to American history. I just think that's an interesting theme to try to pull off, and it's sort of a nice, it'll have a nice diversity to it. There'll be a lot of different lands with a lot of different sort of themes within the main theme, and it has a lot of room for creativity in there. So what you'll notice first when you're pulling up to the park is the sort of entryway plaza over here. The building for the entryway to the park, the gate, if you will, is sort of a New England-esque sort of building, almost, with its sort of brickwork and its blacktop spires, almost. Right here we have our sort of entryway sign, our park sign, if you will. As you can see, it's just a regular Planko sign, but on the sides I've added some nice coaster supports here, just to really make it pop and look a little bit more custom. I've also added some nice foliage around the sign, just to make it look all the more pretty. Also, as you can see, all these fences around these little planters in the plaza are all custom. Entering the park, you're immediately presented with this awesome view of the carousel in the middle of what I'm calling the Colombian Plaza. The carousel, I think, is a very great addition to this little plaza. It just fits so nicely in with the rest, and it's a great first ride to be able to see. So right here, we actually have our information booth. This is where guests can sort of go and hit up these ATMs right here to get their money for the day and buy, like, fast lanes and stuff for the day. Right here, we have a gift shop that guests can come to and get little souvenirs to bring home with them to remember their visit at the park. Of course, we have restrooms. Restrooms, as you know, are very important in places like theme parks. And right over here is the ice cream parlor, where guests can come to just get a little nice frozen treat, maybe a shake or some gelato or something just nice to cool them down. On the far end of the plaza is the train station. This is actually going to be the main hub of the train system that runs it's going to run throughout the entire park, as you can see. It's going to go all around and make lots of little stops as it goes around the park in different areas of the park, just to make it easier for guests to sort of get around the whole place if they would like to. But if you would like to walk to all the other lands, you can absolutely do that by going right under the train station in here, and then you're going to notice like a little portal area where there's going to be an entryway to 3 different lands, which will eventually take you to all sorts of different areas of the park. The first one that I've actually finished is this area, the Boston Harbor section of the park. It's themed to sort of colonial times when Britain was occupying the Boston area of New England. Right as you enter in the Boston Harbor area, you're immediately surrounded with a lot of like really nice trees and autumn colors and New England style foliage. Then you enter sort of like a street, like a main street almost, with housing buildings surrounding you on every side and the British occupying this area with force. After walking through this area of the park, we will turn a corner and get the grand reveal of the chapel and the harbor on our right. The chapel here is actually my best job at the replica of the chapel that Paul Revere actually hung the 2 lanterns in to warn the people that the British were coming. Which is fitting because the ride that's housed in here is actually themed to Paul Revere's famous ride. The ride is called the Patriot, but we'll get to that in a moment. Over here is the start of the entryway for the Boston Tea Party ride, which is actually a teacups ride over here that I have built and themed to the Boston Tea Party. I've also added a bit of a water show in the background, just to make this sort of area a little more interesting. Water shows and features like that really add to the atmosphere of parks. This building right here is actually a restaurant, with one side being a coffee house and the other side being a bakery. Both sides are connected by a little passageway in the middle, and both sides have restrooms. This building right here is the gift shop, where once again some guests can come in and get little knickknacks to remember their visit to the park. This little building right here will actually end up being the exit out of this land into another land, which I will be building soon. And finally, we get back to the Patriot. So entering the chapel, you will notice that this is sort of like almost the basement of the chapel-esque sort of feel that I was going for in here. It's sort of where the rebels would sort of hide their arms from the British so that the British wouldn't know that they were storing weapons in here. Heading out of the Q House, we go down this lovely little path through a New England forest to a British encampment where these marksmen are practicing their gun skills. And after leaving the British encampment, we go back inside the chapel, up the stairs, and into the station of the coaster. It has a little bit of knickknacks on each side, some theming stuff, but this is where guests will board their ride and embark on Patriot. Now with the train rolling into the station, I might as well give you a POV of this ride. So that was Patriot. I hope you enjoyed that POV. Sorry it was a little bit stuttery, but as you can see, this is actually a B&M Giga. It's sort of Fury or Orion-esque. Sort of the first half is more like Orion with its large camelbacks and a bit of a slower pace, and the second half is more Fury-esque with more low-to-the-ground elements and quick airtime hills. But now that we've looked at this section of the park at daytime, I'm going to switch the lighting over to nighttime so we can see it at night. Because this park becomes a whole nother beast at night. The lighting is very orange and almost an amber brick color to sort of fit with the brick and New England-esque theme. And I've also created a fireworks show that goes off behind the chapel every night. Hi, buds. Thank you. Are you trying to lock me in there, Nyabug? The sequencer for the fireworks show is located inside the chapel in this little room right here. So, let's press play and start the fireworks show. And there you have it. There was the fireworks show. I really like the show. I like how it sort of intertwines with the steeple of the chapel, and it really just makes this area pop all the more. So unlike the previous area, this area is very much not finished. It's still got a lot of work to be done. It's sort of a western-esque area, so it's still got a whole western town that needs to be built, but the two coasters' layouts are pretty much complete. They just needed more theming added and more touch-arounds in the area. This right here is actually a Vekoma mine train that intertwines inside of this mountain that I've built around it. And don't worry, this mountain will get improved massively in the next couple episodes with a bunch more rocks and trees and cacti and stuff and shrubbery added all around it. And this right here is a wooden roller coaster. It's sort of inspired by old CCI layouts, but would probably be built by the Gravity Group if it was built today. This coaster is very intense, filled with lots of airtime moments and laterals. The layout of it is pretty much done, but it needs some extra theming around it. It needs this mountain right here to be complete. Also, the Q house needs quite a bit of work. So that right there is sort of an overview of the entire park of what I have so far. So right now I'm actually going to go and show you some gameplay of me completing this mountain right here, adding some cactus and other foliage. So right here, I'm hopping straight in to do some more work on this mountain right here for the mine train. I'm adding some cactuses and other plants right now. I think adding plants, and such as cactuses in this case, really helps make the mountain or whatever you're working on look a lot less bland. If it was just rocks all the way through, it would sort of look stale and it would really just look plain. Adding cactuses and stuff is a great way to sort of differentiate it and add a really, really lovely pop of color to your build. Right now I'm sort of just, as I said, like adding the cactuses in places where, one, it won't hit the coaster, and two, I think will look nice from the sightlines. So what I'm doing is I'm checking all sorts of sightlines to see if I really like the way these cactuses look, and sometimes I don't like the way they look. That's what this one right here, I decide I don't like the way the cactus actually looks right on top of the mountain. I think that top of the mountain should stay sort of empty, and there shouldn't be anything up there. So I checked a sightline, and I saw that I didn't really like the way it looks. I'm sort of going in and adding some other, like, smaller cactuses, more specifically prickly pear cactuses. The more sort of different things you can add, the more unique your build will look, the better it'll look in total and stuff like that. It'll just make it look, more unique, it'll make it pop more, though you can add overboard, so be careful how much you add, and make sure it all sort of matches the overall aesthetic of what you're going for. So that's why I'm adding sort of all sorts of different little plants. A great trick when you're adding plants and stuff is to rotate them, even just ever so slightly, every time you place them. If you just place them down the exact same every time, especially if it's the exact same plants you're placing down every time, it'll start to get stale. It'll almost look plasticky all the way down, and it'll really just look the same. So if you really want to differentiate that, you can rotate your trees or your plants, and it'll make them look different because it's from a different angle. So it'll actually even make them look like an entirely different scenery piece. And always check your sightlines. Checking your sightlines is really important. Seeing how things look from different angles of the park, and really knowing how the whole thing fits together. Because this isn't just sort of a flat 2D space, it's a whole 3D space. Completely surrounding, so looking at it from every single angle is really the best way to check if your build looks good. Just filling in a little gap there I noticed in the mountain. With the mountain in particular, I'm actually adding sort of a gradient of rocks as it goes down, because the top of the mountain is made entirely out of rocks, and the more base of the mountain is actually made out of terraining I made with the Plenko terrain feature, and they look pretty different and very distinct from each other. As you can see here, there's two very distinct parts, and a great way to solve that is to sort of build down almost with rocks and fill in the spaces so that it sort of transitions from one to another like a gradient. So it's not just a distinct layer of the two. Really blend the two together. Sort of bring the rocks down and blend them into almost a gradient, like I'm sort of doing right now. And then you can add the same plants all the way up, and that really helps. Adding the exact same plants, the same type of plants, all the way up in the two sections really helps to blend the two together and make them feel like one instead of two separate pieces, which is sort of what I'm working on right here. Really taking these rocks and blending them in sort of a gradient together with the plants going up the side of the mountain. And of course, I'm checking how it looks from all different angles, wide angles, close-ups, pretty much everywhere I can possibly check the entire place from. But yeah, I'm just sort of checking sightlines, seeing how it interacts with the roller coaster, almost checking my landscape for maybe future expansions when I go over there and I add more rocks and make that area look just as nice. Checking from a little bit of a top view there, seeing how it looks from up there. Again, checking all your sightlines that you possibly can is really important just to make sure you know how it looks. I absolutely love that shot up on the mountain right there. That's actually a really lovely looking shot. But I added another cactus down there because I thought that little corner was a bit empty. It's all sort of about filling in the whole area and really making it sort of full with stuff. You don't want areas that are very empty in the game because that'll make it, I mean, it's empty, it's boring. You want your areas to be full and full of activity and life in the entire area. So right over here, I'm just sort of, again, like, I'm building almost like a tunnel there where the queue goes under, and I'm adding a bunch of cactuses to it, really making it look like a natural, almost, formation there. And you know, adding the cactuses really help things to look natural, right? It looks like they've been there forever when there's a plant that's growing out of it, and that's sort of what I'm doing with the cover of this mine shaft. The cactuses actually hide the repetitive rock work. Same with that cactus right there that I just placed. It just sort of hides the almost repetitiveness of it. It makes it look more natural when I add cactuses. Cactuses can physically hide things, and they can make things look different and hide them that way. Again, just checking sightlines and seeing how things look from a bunch of different angles. That I keep saying that, but it is really important to see how your builds look from all sorts of different angles, especially from above. That's a great way to see your whole land laid out in front of you. Just adding more cactuses, you know, really sprucing this entire area up with a whole bunch of cactuses and rocks and all sorts of stuff to really blend the mountain down and really make the mountain look as incredible as it possibly can be. So I'm going to leave you guys with me doing that for just a little bit and some music, so enjoy! So now I'm actually adding some rocks in between the coaster sort of helixes. So the storyline for this mine train is actually that there's a bunch of miners and they've been trapped inside the mines, and so you need to take this train and use TNT and blast through the mountainside to rescue them. And this is sort of the finale of the roller coaster, where you sort of break through the mines and you escape back into the real world, like the outside, and you're running around the mountains and all sorts of stuff. So there's going to be a lot of rocks and stuff. It's going to have that sort of runaway mine train, almost Big Thunder Mountain feel. The whole thing is sort of a cross. The whole roller coaster is sort of a cross between Calico Mine Ride and Big Thunder Mountain, with the outdoor portions feeling a little bit more like Big Thunder Mountain, and the indoor portions being almost more of a dark ride, with the sort of mining feel on the Calico Mine Ride, almost inspiration from there. So right now I'm sort of just creating like pretty tall like mountains, almost like spires, like you would see in like southern Utah, where sort of like that area, or like Zion, where there's like these giant sort of towers of of rock, and they're like spires almost. And you sort of see that with Big Thunder Mountain too. Sort of that sort of feel is what I'm going for with these rocks right here that I'm sort of surrounding the mine train with. This mine train I'm actually really proud of. It's got a few really nice roller coaster sections that I really enjoy, and some really nice dark ride sections inside, which I will show you soon. So right now I'm actually building like a almost like a rock bridge where the mine train will cross over the other mine train. It's sort of like creates a tunnel. Like there's like this mountain, and like the mine train is sort of crossing in between. Just sort of creates a nice near miss effect and a nice tunnel. Just checking the clearance there to make sure the train can actually pass through there without anybody hitting the top of those rocks before I continue on with this bridge. Checking sight lines and stuff like that, really important. As I said before, making sure this bridge looks nice up against the queue. This is sort of like a valley section of the queue, almost like a hidden queue away from the first cattle pen and the last little stretch in a cave into the mine shaft. I'm going to really decorate that in the next episode, as well as the whole queue, and really finish up this entire ride right here, this entire mine train ride, in the next episode, which you will have to wait for. But in this episode, I continue to sort of, build this little bridge here, put a bunch of rocks down, and really continue to build these mountains here, make them as big as looks right. You always sort of, sometimes you place things and later on you look at them and you realize, oh, that's actually not my favorite. I don't really like the way that looks too much. And I actually do that right now with this right here, this rock right here. I do not like the way that they're so close together, so I decided to move this second spire right here over just a bit to really create like two distinct separate spires instead of like two that are directly next to each other. I didn't really like the way that looks, and that happens all the time. You will notice later, that's not really my favorite, and you move it. That happens all the time with Planet Coaster. Again, just sort of filling in the gaps here with sort of rocks and making another spire here in between the roller coaster tracks. I'm not actually going to keep this confined inside the roller coaster helixes like they are right now. I will fill it out later, probably next episode or the one after, with more rocks. And right now in this episode, I'm just focusing on the big mountains that are right directly inside of the mine train helixes that go around. Just so I could keep it fairly short. This is a shorter gameplay portion today, because most of the episode was me showing you what I have so far. That's not actually going to be the norm. It's mostly, all the episodes pretty much after this are going to be gameplay episodes of me actually playing the game in this fashion and voicing it over. That's what the series is actually going to be, is this right here. That the previous look at the park was just sort of an overview of what I have so far, and eventually once I actually complete the whole park or complete certain areas, I'll do almost like a promotional style thing, very similar to Theme Park Worldwide's Planet Coaster Let's Play. Is a huge inspiration for the series that I'm doing here. Absolutely massive inspiration. Right here I'm sort of thinking about adjusting that turn there, making it a little tighter, but we'll save that for another episode when I work more on the wooden coaster. So, I'm pretty much just adding more rocks here for the next few minutes, so I'm going to leave you with some nice Planko music to watch me build for a few minutes. So see you then. just once again adding some cactuses to my rock work, to my mountains here. Once again, to differentiate them, make them look a little less like all rock and a little less boring, really make them pop with certain colors and stuff, make them just look all the more better. Yeah, so you can see the coaster winding around this sort of section. Again, I'm really going for like a Big Thunder Mountain feel here, like at Disneyland, with it sort of weaving through the orange rockwork, and the sort of western, southern, almost Utah feel of it. This whole area is almost going to feel like that. Mostly it's going to be a ghost town, like Main Street, maybe with some nooks and crannies, and a lot of rock work and stuff like this. It's really just going to feel like an old U.S. Western town, if like it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an old U.S. Western town. Really fitting in with the whole overarching American history theme is what this area really is representing. So yeah, like I said, just adding cactuses all around, going back with the prickly pear cactuses, putting them in all sorts of places to really make them look nice, and stuff like that. And that's all I pretty much do for a few minutes, so I'm going to leave you once again with some music and the footage, so enjoy. And right there is probably my favorite look of the whole mountain in general. I love the way it looks, just that whole look of the whole thing. And looking at sightlines, like I said, is so important, seeing just how the entire picture looks, because if one spot doesn't look good, you can go back and change it and just adjust all the little things, and knowing how the whole thing looks can really help determine all the little things. I love that little dip there that the coaster makes. It just, I don't know, I love the way that the coaster sort of interacts with the terrain, even though the coaster was built first. And once again, ending on my favorite shot of the entire mountain. Thank you all so much for watching this first episode of Midway Games. It was a pleasure to make. I will probably be posting the next one in 2 weeks. I may get crazy and post it next week and start posting one every week. We'll see how I feel. They're fairly easy to make, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Gives me a lot of inspiration for the parks. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to like if you enjoyed it, and comment, because comments are cool. I love to see your guys' thoughts on the videos. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next episode, where hopefully we finish up this mine train ride right here and begin a little bit more work on the wooden roller coaster further down in the other area of the western area. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye!